Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
Send. All right, it's recording.
Make sure my hair
can't
is
say that.
covering
We
my receding hair.
We might get sued by the Full Send podcast.
My insecurities.
Oh, my fault. I'll beep that out. Beep beep. So, Luke, did you know the whole socks orgasm thing? I feel like I knew it.
He's like, what?
Yeah, what? Yeah, context.
You wear socks and you can get off faster.
Wait, faster or harder?
Faster.
Oh, I thought it was just faster.
I think faster.
It didn't it doesn't take as long.
Yeah, it's definitely not harder. It's faster.
Well, I can only speak from experience.
If it made it better, bro, I'd be wearing all kinds of pants and stuff.
I'd be tripling up on them socks, bro.
Dude, I would make sure
I'd be getting
Socks.
every part of my body is covered. It doesn't need any extra blood flow.
We just duct tape those.
All go right there.
If you tape them together, does it help?
I think it's just faster. I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think it's the quickness.
Okay. I only, again, speaking from personal experience, it's
That's why I wear socks all the time. That's why Christina, if she just says, "Hey, let's
I feel
go,"
like men and women
all
are
right.
very different in the sense that, like,
Oh, she hates when I wear socks. She hates when I wear socks. But literally, that's like
Why?
because it's like
Why does she care?
because it's weird for her because it's the only thing either of us are wearing usually. Is I'll
But she
just have
can't
my
see.
socks
She
on.
can't even see the socks.
out of sight, out of mind. She's just staring at him the whole time.
Yeah.
Can't not
No
look.
wonder it
Most of the
takes her
time-
so long to come. She's staring at your socks.
I'll tell you what, there are some weird things we've talked about before just because we're just like, and then she's trying to like, and it's randomly just like, did you get that paper Lincoln has to have signed? It's just like, are you serious right now?
Hey,
During
In the middle of this, right? Like, it's just like,
that's hilarious.
I'm not
Why?
proud of it, but sometimes I do baby talk.
Okay.
baby talk. Okay.
Okay.
Getting weirder. Well, that's no, I mean, well, I get like there's once you're
I'll be over here if you need
once you kind of get like once you're stable in a certain
comfortable with
thing,
someone?
you can kind of like go to the next thing and the next thing. It's whatever.
It's jokes. Yeah.
But it
No,
may
we
seem
need to
weird
get
to
back to the
someone.
baby talk. You do baby talk?
That's well,
not like pure baby talk, but it's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. We don't need to dive into it. But
I need an explanation and an example.
I don't know if we need either of those.
No, we do.
I
The
would
people-
feel
the
very
people
weird.
need-
They want to know. This is why
I need an example of like what you say and how you say it.
Okay.
All right, so pretend Gabby.
No,
Yeah, we don't need.
Well, who
that.
is he gonna pretend he's talking to?
you. If anything,
Talk to the camera. Talk to me.
So okay,
just close your eyes.
You're goo goo gaga.
it's more or less okay. It started with to get even more weird
Just what we needed.
with the dogs.
What?
We talk to the dogs like babies.
Okay, I get that. I get that.
I go butters.
And so it
Not
just
Bader Butterson, right?
and then it just
Beanie
transfer.
Weenie. And then it just
transfer.
everything.
No, I want to hear the baby voice.
I don't think we can do it. I'm not ready.
Justin can't. He's not comfortable yet.
We might have to- yeah, maybe. Give me another couple weeks. I don't know.
Once he gets loose on this cruise, he'll be good. He'll be good.
So we need to bring these mics. I say that like I'm going.
Yeah.
You are going.
Yeah. Good luck setting all that up because I won't be there.
That's true.
It's true.
Believe me, I sound cheery, but
It'll
I'm not
be
happy.
trash audio, but it will be recorded.
It's like all windy. You're on the top deck. This is like Yeah.
Gabs also knows what she is.
she does know what she's
She
doing.
knows what she's doing.
She does know what she's doing.
I have
Just
a
steal
very
And I
one.
have a room.
rudimentary
I have a room to
understanding.
myself if I go, so we can
Oh,
set it up in
dang,
that room.
studio, bruh.
We just be the pod.
Wow.
You know you can move all the beds and stuff around those. Like you can just the beds and like you can rearrange them however you want.
They're not like
people don't
cemented
like
to the
them.
ground.
Yeah, people don't like when you do it, but just tip them. But like it's actually like a lot of those rooms is just one bed and they're connected. It's like they're slightly smaller than twins, but like they separate. So when it's just one bed,
they're smaller than twins.
Separated. Yeah, because it's like a queen except it's two beds. You know what I mean? You know how king is basically the size of two twins.
I didn't know that.
It's just they're separate beds. It's just covered in one sheet and stuff, so you don't even know. You know what I mean? So you can separate them.
You don't feel the crack?
Well, I don't recall ever feeling the crack. I mean, on a cruise,
on the bed,
on a bed,
two separate
cruise.
beds.
Yeah,
Depends on the status of
the crack.
how you fall.
What is happening? I'm talking. Never mind. We should just. What's the topic of today's podcast?
Psychedelics.
So, yeah, Justin had this podcast he sent me. It was a Lex Friedman podcast. He was interviewing a guy. Yeah, go ahead. Just talk about it.
His name's it's like Brian Marescu or some weird
last name, right?
Essentially, he was a very well-studied. He had a background in Arabic and a couple other languages. He went to, I think, Brown and then Ivy League education. But he was fascinated with Greek culture and the reality that Christianity was birthed out of a Greek culture, even though technically Rome and the Romans were in control of the land. The New Testament was written in Greek. Most of the epistles that Paul wrote were written to churches in Greek cities. So Greek culture had a massive influence on the launch of Christianity.
So you could say the government, even though they kind of oppressed Christianity in a lot of ways, they were still,
because
Christianity was still birthed out of the culture.
Yeah, and it was illegal, like when it started. That's why Jesus ended up getting, or one of the reasons why he was crucified. It was illegal, and so there's a really fascinating story of a Greek god. His name is Dionysus, and when you read a lot of the literature about who he was, kind of the background. It was the god of, a lot of people think it's like ecstasy or pleasure or something like that, but he had a lot of like interesting like correlations with like the idea of like you drink the blood of the god to become the god, and a lot of similarities between like the story of Dionysus and then now what we know as the story of Jesus. A lot of similarities. And so essentially what he spent 12 years like going to the Vatican and just reading and researching and finding that like I'd have to go back in to hear the exact definitions, but he even talked about like they didn't even have a word for alcohol. It was just wine was obviously very common, but so here's something I didn't know either, is a story of Jesus turning water into wine is only captured in the Gospel of John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't include it in their writing at all. And when you read John, it just reads a little differently. Like it's like the lover's book where it's more just relational and experiential type of stuff. And he also talked about how a certain part of Greece, it was a very common ritual where like one day a year they would go and leave all of these bins filled with water, and then they believed they would come back and find them filled with wine from the gods. And again, back to Dionysus, it was like you become the god by drinking the blood of the god, which is like his wine. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, back in that day, most wines were spiked with whether it was like herbs or like mead or beer. Like most of the wines that were drank back in that day were spiked. And so
there's some kind of psychedelic
potentially. So that's what we can't, no one knows for sure, but so Eleusis was like the Roman statesman Cicero. He was quoted as saying that Eleusis was the most fascinating thing Greece had ever produced. Like not democracy, not the arts and the sciences, like Eleusis, which is where you would essentially go to have a mystical type of experience. And I think it was Alan Watts who said, there's nothing more dangerous to authority than a spontaneous popular outbreak of mysticism, where it's like really give the people the freedom to really think for themselves. Nothing is more threatening to authority.
Mm-hmm.
And so Eleusis survived for thousands of years. And most, or at least from what I've read and heard, a lot of these scholars think that they were having essentially psychedelic type experiences where they were essentially coming face to face with something beyond our understanding or at least explanation.
Nice. So he just talks about that the whole time on the podcast, or does he start to like bring up the ideas of God and like how it like crosses this?
Yeah. So a lot of his research is basically it's premised on the reality of if you die before you die, you don't have to die when you die.
That's
right. And we even have, if you die before you die, you don't have to die when you die. Right. So it's a similar things that we would see in the scriptures where it's like being born again, surrendering your life. Like if you want to keep your life, if you want to save your life, you're going to lose it. But those that are willing to lose their life will surely keep it, type of thing. So there's an element of surrender. And I can only, again, speak from personal experience. My experience with psychedelics is you start to detach from the reality, and you start to like think about what's after this, like in a very real way.
Mm-hmm.
But then also at the same time, you come back and are just immensely thankful. Like they just did. He talks about this on the podcast. He basically says, I don't know if it was done at Harvard or one of the Ivy League schools, but they did a study, and actually what's interesting, because like it's getting pretty popular, like microdosing.
DMT study? Is that what it was?
This was psilocybin.
Okay.
So magic mushrooms. And it's getting pretty popular, like microdosing, which would be, anything like 0.2 to 0.4 grams a day, something like that. Nothing crazy. They don't really necessarily see a ton of benefit from that, but people that macrodose. So they didn't quantify it, but I would guess probably like 3+ grams. So kind of a big dose.
At one time? Or?
Correct. Yeah. All at once. 3 out of 4 people, after doing that, said it was one of the most meaningful experiences of their life. And this is a Joseph Campbell reference, but a lot of people are caught up in trying to understand the meaning of life or find the meaning of life. And perhaps what we're really here for is just an experience of being alive. Like how do we differentiate?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for me, it like goes like, because I could imagine just like a lot of people would say about that. Christians, would say about that, because a lot of people, who aren't Christian or whatever, just would be like, yeah, Justin, that sounds fantastic. Right. Like opening myself up to that and being really grateful afterwards. And then you'd have people who'd push back in the church who'd say, no, that's you're altering your state of mind or whatever.
Because I think, isn't there a scripture in the Old Testament that talks about like not doing anything that alters your state of mind or something like that?
Well, no, I think what I really don't think so. I think what the Bible says is that, and granted, whoever's listening, you can check this. I'm sure I get a text afterwards from somebody.
Dang, your people listen to it like that?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple guys that are like, send me paragraphs. Like, when you said this, it was actually, you were wrong. I'm like, all right, thanks. Well,
dang, how much shit they say about me?
Good thing I give that disclaimer.
I feel like I'm wrong 90% of the time.
Everyone loves you. Everyone loves you. So yeah, no, I mean, I think what the verse says is don't do anything that's going to affect you in such a way where you're basically making sinful or bad decisions. Right. But I think anything in a controlled environment, you know, where, you know, you have people you trust and whatever. I mean, I don't think there's any harm done there. And then the other thing too is like, I've always been, dude, I've always thought like, okay, where do you guys draw the line here? Because if you're cool with drinking, you're altering your state of mind. If you're cool with drinking coffee, you've acknowledged to yourself that like, you don't like the way you feel when you wake up and you need that push, right? There's the people who drink like a pot of coffee a day. Clearly they don't do it because they just like the taste of black coffee.
Well, and even like, dude,
It could be tasty though.
alcohol, like the weird thing about all of that is like, I forget, maybe it was Jordan Peterson. Someone was talking about it, and it's like, if we could pick one drug to be legal, alcohol might be the worst one.
Yeah, it is.
The worst one.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I don't know. Maybe I'd switch to mushrooms.
well, mostly because it's like, dude, if you take a solid dose of mushrooms, you don't want more mushrooms.
Right.
You're just going to chill. Like you don't want to go, you're not angry. You're not
Oh, if you want to drink,
like
you're binging.
aggressive. Like the problem with drinking is it's that
you never get that. You never get that satiating feeling.
You always want more. You always want more.
Right. Because you're always
never
like
satisfied.
Well,
it's a dopamine related drug versus a serotonin related drug. Yeah. Great.
It's and part of it is just there's a fear of losing the buzz. You're just like, oh, I don't want to lose this. I need to keep it going.
Or it's just everyone else that you're with is continuing to drink it. And
yeah.
Well, and all the benefits of alcohol are only experienced on the ascending side of the curve.
Ascending. What'd you say?
ASC.
And then you hit the ascend part and it sucks.
And then you go to the descending and then it's bad. You want to be sleeping for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the ass is good, D is bad.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, granted, it's like being full. Like you just eat until you're full, and then like literally to the point where like you can't eat anymore. Your body just won't accept it. This is like kind of like because it's satisfied, completely satisfied. You never really get that way with alcohol until you throw up or you just not, or it's taken away from you. You don't have access to it anymore, right? So yeah, because it was like. We had a birthday party the other day and we had we went to Kobe and it was like, I got so full. Like I had 2 beers and I was just like, I couldn't drink or do anything after that.
You ate too much food?
Yeah. I ate too much food. It was just like, I got that full feeling, but yeah, like if I'm just drinking and I'm not like, you're just at a party where there's not like tons of food there, which is really every college party. It's just liquor.
Or Natty Light
and pizza. So yeah, I mean, you just get trashed, and you think about how much damage that does, as opposed to like smoking weed or doing something else, to where it's like, you know, you're not sitting there poisoning yourself and having to keep getting. Granted, people like sit there and just toke all day, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say a little too much of anything will get dangerous.
Sure.
Well, I even heard. Okay, so I heard a really interesting.
But alcohol will physically kill you. The physical
100%.
drug will kill you.
Yeah.
Weed, granted, you know, obviously, like you can make stupid decisions and kill yourself
Not ideal for the lungs.
on marijuana. Well, I mean, but if you eat edibles, like you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like you literally, like you're not damaging your liver like you are with alcohol.
Right.
So it's like physically, you know, alcohol is more physically damaging than a lot of drugs.
100%.
So it's like, yeah. But it's so weird because we have this cultural, dude. I read this like meme or something on Reddit, and it was just like, shoot, where was it? It was on that Open Christian thing, but it was just funny because it was like, it was a Christian dating site, and someone put, someone just telling them about themselves and just saying, I didn't get that demon COVID shot or that evil COVID shot. Right. And it just sounds so like, what? This is why people don't like Christians. And it wasn't like, you know, I mean, not everyone's like that, but I know a lot of people that are, they would just claim conspiracy and this and that and, you know, whatever. That's just tough. It's just like, we're just so conditioned. It sucks. But
it's messy.
I do want to do ayahuasca really bad. I want to do that.
Yeah, that seems crazy. I would want to hear somebody's experience, like somebody I actually know their experience probably before I tried it, but it seems crazy.
Well, I think as long as you're cool with like throwing up, I think that's kind of just the thing that always happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. They like fan you and shit, like as you're throwing up.
Yeah, I'd want a shaman that, like, if I did it, I'd probably want to go.
Oh, you need a good guy
to like Costa Rica or like go somewhere,
Brazil or wherever.
Because like people want to like. It's just like it's so easy for people in America to just write off this stuff as like cuckoo and crazy, but it's like reality. Like these plant medicines have been a massive part of civilization and societies for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we just happened to win all the wars, and that led to the Protestant Reformation, which turned into the birth of the Christian America that we know today, where
legalistic,
like we talked about,
Christian America.
Drugs are very frowned upon, but also like we're good to just have alcohol everywhere, which is probably the most damaging drug of them all.
Right.
Like big macro perspective.
Sure.
And so end of the day, like to me, like I love the idea of an ayahuasca experience because it's like, it's probably going to be terrible.
In a way.
Probably going to be horrible. But at the same time, like I am the biggest believer in hormesis, and it's the principle that you only grow because of adversity.
Right.
Right. Like if you don't go through hard things, you're just going to stay soft and weak and fickle. Like you're never going to get stronger if you don't have to face and go through hard things. And so just in the sense that, you know, I'll go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and put my body through hell to try to get a little stronger, stay healthy.
Yeah.
This is essentially the same reality for your mind and your psychology, like the way you kind of, you know, approach life.
Yeah.
And there's things inside of all of us that we've probably suppressed to not have to feel the pain or the sting of something. Or maybe it's just, I mean, we're so used to our insecurities at this point that like we're very aware, but we just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it forces you to literally stare at it
right
face to face for hours. And you're like, we're going to get an answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a big fan of all that. Anything can lead to that, like growth and just kind of moving past, like, cause I've heard some people talk about it as like, you're like just getting over the roadblock and you're just being able to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause that's one thing he talked about a little bit in that podcast. He just said like, you know, as like, I mean, it's happening at like Stanford, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, like they're studying largely and widely like the effects of psychedelics, just in the sense of like treating alcoholism, or depression, anxiety, all of these things. And I mean, it's compared to the drugs that we have,
right?
I mean, they blow them out of the water.
Yeah. Nicotine's addictive. You know, you got things that are very like, people can't get off of them, pills and all that.
So but that's the thing is like, what do you do with that? What do you do when 3 out of 4 people tell you, 75% of people tell you,
so mushrooms,
one experience was one of the most meaningful things they've ever experienced.
You're still talking about psilocybin, right?
That's that was the study on psilocybin.
So
really? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So is psilocybin, can that be addictive?
No.
Really?
I've never once heard of someone ever getting addicted to mushrooms. Because the way that
It tastes like shit.
I've done,
that helps.
I would say
until they make it
in my life,
until they make candy and you know all that.
One serious like macro dose, and I can honestly say it was one of the best days of my life.
What do they make? What do they make? Like, so you could obviously just eat straight shrooms, right? But what do they make? Like, they make edibles, right? They make like
they
chocolate,
put in like chocolate
stuff.
They put yeah. You can do it a million ways. Yeah.
Pasta,
Yeah, I don't know.
cheesecake.
But that's the crazy part. It's like, what do you do when it's clearly very impactful. And like Rogan talks about it all the time.
The problem is it just doesn't have any legs. The only people that are going to be like pushing it are the people who are studying natural plant-based treatments for things, which there's no money in.
Well, the problem is,
then there's no
one wants it
because people are so legalistic about drugs, right? Any kind of hallucinogens or anything like that in the church, because you have like business. I feel like business, and then religion, right? So I think government, and then there's government. So government, I feel like if anything has the most to gain out of all this, because then they can contract and tax people who are selling psilocybin and stuff like that. So they really have the most to gain out of all this. Surprised they don't push it more. Granted, you have bipartisan, which a lot of conservatives or Christians and whatever, so that likely won't happen.
Well, I think half of
businesses, they get money for creating pharmaceuticals that treat different things.
Right. They need to keep you sick.
So yeah,
they don't want you taking something that's actually going to fix your problem.
Yeah. So it's like the path forward for it is very tough because you got no advocates that carry any weight.
Correct.
It's tough. What do you, Gab? What's the craziest thing you've done, psychedelic wise?
Probably just shrooms. Yeah.
I remember you telling us about that. I like that. I liked your story.
It was a good time.
It's awesome.
Time flew by.
Really?
And yeah, we like felt like it was like maybe 2 hours, and it was really like 5 or 6. But yeah, we all had a great time. It was just like 5 of us friends and played like a card game, and we just like laughed constantly.
I love that. I like just the laughing. Just like that's why, because for some reason I can't control it with like the pen, because I'll get real high, and sometimes it's a laughing high, sometimes it's not. You know what I mean? Like just depending on, it must depend on other factors, the mood you're in and stuff. But like sometimes I'll just sit there and laugh like crazy, and then sometimes I'm just like, chill. You know what I mean? Just like whatever.
Probably, I mean, also depends on the different strains and.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would say is.
I thought that too, but then like I would hit the same pen and get 2 different results depending on the day.
Yeah. Well, so that, in my opinion, that's like the difference when you like.
Gabby's like you're
go into like.
Something's wrong with you.
Like if you like. There's no words to explain it because it's not explainable. Like it's.
You're talking about the mushrooms.
Once you get like on that level, with like a macro dose, and it just, dude, your entire reality, it's like you don't know what is what. Like you literally exit space and time.
I love that. Well, I have had that. It wasn't with mushrooms though, right? Because I haven't done mushrooms. I've done those micro doses. I've been trying to make a joke about macro dose.
Some mushrooms on the pod.
It's so easy. It's like I gave Christina a macro dose.
Oh shh.
You okay?
What happened?
I'll tell you later.
Okay. Something happened.
You all right?
Great.
You see something on the computer?
I guess something happened. Something had to have came
Someone
through.
sent me something.
Oh, geez.
okay.
Oh, jeez. I think the camera's not pointed your way. Luke, you've been largely uninvolved in this conversation.
I just cannot.
What do you think? What's your first of all? What's your experience with any kind of other than alcohol and marijuana? Have you done marijuana? Have you smoked marijuana or vaped or eaten?
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. Also.
Oh yeah, I guess be sensitive.
I have very, very minimal experience.
Well, what? I mean, it's okay. He talks about his past. It's not like does it. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Unless he doesn't want people to know about his past.
Do you want people to know about your past?
He already said he has very
How much
little
time do we
experience.
have?
How much time do we have? Let me tell you. Hey, I'll tell you what.
Have you ever done shrooms before?
No.
So the furthest you've ever taken it is smoking weed?
I've done that twice.
It was probably just in high school because your buddies had it and you're drinking with them or something.
It was in college.
Peer pressure.
It's actually a minor miracle that it was never more than twice because I was, a party kid. I just, for some reason, never.
Dude, I smoked so much at Full Sail.
Never did it.
This was really the first time I had ever really done it consistently. It was at Full Sail. And I mean, all the time. I
It
mean,
is
almost
interesting,
every day.
It's
But
how
I
some
never
people don't
bought
like
it. Never bought it ever. I just had so many friends.
You're one of
just
those guys.
raw.
I had so many
One of
friends.
those guys.
Fucking moocher.
No, it wasn't that.
Mooching ass bitch.
Dude, that's the thing. I knew you're gonna say that, but I never.
We all know one of those.
No, dude. I'm just saying, like, literally, they just wanted people to smoke with. I never even invited myself. They're always like, "Hey, come over." Like, all right, well,
But
all right.
I
doesn't
feel
that
that.
in of itself, like, just elude or at least like open the conversation, like what a great
The camaraderie.
drug. Because it's like
Brings
alcohol.
people together.
No one's just like, yo, you want to take this? You want to come drink this alcohol with me? Like no one.
Yeah.
And I will say too.
You don't share your drink.
Well, the
But,
other
like,
thing too, I would say the results.
You got a blunt?
The
I need
results
homies.
smoking marijuana is much more predictable. Like, so people could be an angry alcoholic. They could be a happy alcoholic. They could just pass out every time they drink.
Yeah.
People are different. Their bodies react way different. With weed, it's not, I don't feel like it's as different. Like a lot of people react similarly to it.
Yeah. You don't see somebody like
The angry
freaking out
pothead.
and
It's like, no, like,
shitting on the sidewalk when they're smoking weed.
that's true.
I mean, I see it the same way.
Justin's
I see
like, well, I've shit.
I've never pooped on a sidewalk. Personally, I like to poop indoors.
Even when it has an arrow and it says shit right here. You've seen that on like the side of buildings.
No. What?
That's so funny. No. People just troll and like graffiti. And well, it's a don't.
I've never, you stay on Reddit too much.
I am on Reddit a lot. I've seen this in person though, like in Columbus. There was
Really?
a spot I do remember in
It's like an
Columbus.
arrow that says shit here.
Well, no, it doesn't say shit. I got it wrong. It says don't shit here. It's just like a don't shit
so
here.
that means someone did
Yes,
shit
right.
there.
It's just it's like a dare. It's like a don't shit right here.
That's
It's-
hilarious.
which
They have
is
like a
so
camera
funny.
pointed
That's
right at that
hilarious.
spot.
That's hilarious.
Which
I
is- yeah. But
That's
anyway,
funny.
you guys are just ganging up on me. So I will say I didn't have my one of like my psychedelic experiences with mushrooms, but I did do salvia when it was legal. So did you ever do salvia?
Once it was very intense.
Yeah. So they had like salvia was an incense. It is an incense, right? People started smoking it and realizing like, oh shoot, you can get pretty.
What is it?
Like stupid. Like it only lasts for maybe a minute or
Yeah,
two, but
well,
it
it
is
wasn't-
intense.
Well, so our trip, well, I had several trips.
My world turned
But we
into a
got-
pop-up book. Remember those pop-up books where
Yeah,
like
it's definitely
the whole world closed.
You
and it was
hallucinate.
literally black.
You hallucinate.
And it was closing.
I don't think
And I
I'm
was
about
just sitting
that
on the
life.
couch, just like, oh my God. It was just black. Half of the world was just black. It was intense.
It
like-
sounds intense.
You're like, I'm getting shut out of reality right now.
Well, right. You're just like, everything's over. This is crazy.
Yeah, so it'll make you hallucinate. But that was the most intense psychedelic thing I've ever done. And they had these strengths. So they'd have like 10x, 20, 30, 40x.
Right.
We did 80x. And then the first time we did it, we smoked it out of a pipe, which you
Water
can't.
pipe?
No, just a pipe.
fair.
So you can't get as good. And we can't get it. You can't get as good of a hit out of just a pipe as you can a bong, right? So what we did was we smoked out of that, like had a whole experience, and we recorded it. It was just silly. Us like we looked so stupid. And then we did this out of a bong because everyone at Full Sail had a bong, so I just borrowed someone's. And so we took it to a guy's house, my friend's house, and we all smoked
took
it.
it from their premises?
No, he let me borrow it.
You took it from his home?
Yeah,
Man,
from his house.
it's a good friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, these are guys like
It's
one
probably
guy.
like one of those big ones, like a.
I mean,
I remember if I ever wanted to take mine from one place to another, I had to like wrap it in a blanket.
Oh
and,
like, it was in like
it.
a paper bag.
That's no good way to do
It was in like it was hiding it. Yeah, yeah. You're just walking around. Like, this is my trombone.
Awkwardly shaped something.
Yeah,
You're just
right.
like, nothing sketchy is happening here.
So like there was a guy in my class he was this dude from California. He was like a super nice dude, but he had probably 20 bongs in his house, and he had all kinds of different shapes. Like, and the one we used frequently was the ice bong, which was
Connoisseur.
amazing. Yeah. So
A little glycerin.
yeah. So he basically did all the
Glycerin.
he did all that stuff. No, not the glycerin. That was before.
It's that. What is that?
I,
Is that Pearl Jam?
yeah. That was Pearl Jam.
I was sorry. Yeah.
Okay. You guys kill me.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
Oh man.
Did you guys eat a gummy before this podcast?
That's what I was about to say. I was like, you would think.
You would think.
We're sober.
Man,
Imagine what we're like.
Oh man.
it's the drug of
Under the
friendship.
We
influence.
really do need to. We'll talk about it off the podcast. We do need to do something.
Okay. So anyway, we got this guy's bong. I borrowed his bong. I took it to the other group of friends that were doing the salvia. We all went in on buying salvia on eBay. I mean, literally, you could,
On eBay?
you could buy it.
on eBay.
Yeah, you could buy it anywhere.
Fucking 60s?
You could buy it. You could buy it. You could buy it friggin' anywhere because it wasn't illegal. It was an incense. It was an incense, bro. All right, whatever. I bought a lot of shit on eBay.
Back
Just
before
saying.
they had Amazon.
Yeah, it was before. Dude, but it wasn't technically a drug.
That is
They made it illegal.
hilarious.
They made it illegal to sell online.
Oh my
But-
gosh.
Yeah. So
Where does it come from? Is it?
It's some plant.
It is a plant?
Like you burn
No,
it.
because they used to actually. That was one of the compounds they would put in their wines back in ancient Greece. Yeah.
Oh, it's all coming together now. That stuff is
These people
intense,
knew
man.
they were doing.
I mean, but it was like it was like 5-minute trip when we did the bong, way more intense out of the bong.
Yeah.
And it lasted it lasted for 5 minutes, but it felt like it lasted like 45 minutes.
Right.
So time actually slowed down
Yeah.
as opposed to what you were saying with mushrooms or whatever, or she said,
Yeah.
time went really fast. I don't know.
I
Maybe it
think it's
depends
just
on the
because we're
trip.
having that much.
Maybe it just depends on the trip. But yeah, everyone around, like, and it was crazy because it's so weird. I just remember everyone around me, and it was like kind of a version of just another world. As if I was playing a video game as a third person character, and I was just like walking around this other world. But what was crazy is when we did it out of the pipe, it wasn't as intense, but it's like I came back to that same world.
Yeah.
That was so odd. Like, because I'd never done anything to where like I literally this every time I smoked it, I came back to the exact same place.
Yeah.
And it was just like, am I in another dimension right now? Like, what is I like? Because this is all very familiar from last trip I had.
That's
It's
crazy.
nuts. Yeah.
Well, it's the subconscious. And what's kind of weird about this whole world is that like most, at least my experience, most Christians are just very anti anything that alters your mind or your state of being. And it's hard because like being on the other side of the fence and actually experiencing those things, it's like in those states and then post the experience, it only ever was like joy, ecstasy, love, kindness.
Well,
and it only like and then on the back end of it, it only like I only wanted to be a better version of me. The crazy thing is like listening to people try to tell you what you're allowed and not allowed to do, but they've never actually had experiences. So it's like, it's weird because you're just like, no, don't drink because it's bad. Well, have you ever drank? No, but I just know it's bad. Like,
No,
you don't know
yeah,
that.
People get caught up in the narratives, and then like it's just like politics, where like the majority of people probably agree on 90% of things. It's just that the talking points are so aggressive that no one ever wants to get past that. And so it's like I was just saying, the Bible verse talks about being in a state of mind that's going to cause you to do something you shouldn't do. Right. And so if you're looking at, again, like we talk about the 2 commands of Jesus all the time, where it's like love your neighbors yourself and love the Lord your God and all your heart, whatever. Like having this experience doesn't violate either of those 2 commands.
Correct.
So it's like, why? Like, why are we so against this?
It's fear is my opinion.
Now you're going to dig in there and find something you didn't know was there.
Well, I think it's just more or less, I think it's fear of
It's like the same fear people have when they don't want to go to counseling.
Well, I think it's fear of man. I think it's fear of what other people will think if they know that you've dabbled into these
Or what?
dark arts or whatever.
How weak
however wanna
are you
brand them.
to need to try that stuff? You must be weak.
Well, if people think that the COVID vaccine is the devil, and there are those groups of people, then there are definitely people who think that all this other stuff is the devil too.
Yeah.
I think end of the day, like as humans, I think there's nothing more beautiful than being purely and wholeheartedly open-minded about the experience of being here. And in my opinion, consciousness is an absolute gift that we've been given. And like, how are you going to explain the cosmos and every mystery of the universe by looking through some little thing like this and saying this is the only way that reality is able to exist?
You know, sometimes I ask
why do we feel the need to understand the mind of God? That's insane. It's literally insane.
Well, I mean, most smart people would acknowledge that you can't understand the mind of God.
So why do we try so hard?
Well, I think some people probably do and fail, but I mean, I fully acknowledge that I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, you know?
I do know.
I do.
Luke, what's your thought? What's your opinion on, for example, mushrooms? Would you ever do mushrooms?
I would not.
Okay.
I mean, I won't go around with a picket sign saying nobody should, but I would not.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're not going to stop someone from doing it, if whatever. You feel like it violates anything?
I don't know. I guess my question with stuff like that is like, well, like, I guess just like, why? I don't know. That's just where I'm at.
So then my and 100% respect. And I have no judgment.
There is literally no ill will at this table.
Yeah. I could care less what anyone.
Yeah, no, but I just, we all have our
different perspectives.
Yeah, we all have our perspectives.
So then my question would be, if there is more to experience, like, look, a lot of people say it like this. It's like psychedelics might get you into the room with Jesus, but they won't keep you there. But for a lot of people, it's like, I don't know how to get there. And the reality is, like, I've listened to so many people talk about their experience of like, okay, so they did that the guy that was on that podcast, Brian, I forget his last name, Marescu, some crazy, but he wrote a book called The Immortality Key, and the first chapter he opens with a story of an atheist who did a macro dose of psilocybin. And she explained it, and her words were like, it felt like I was bathed in God's love. And like, this is an atheist. Like, it's like, you don't even believe in God, but like, you described your experience on psilocybin as like, I felt like I was bathed in the love of God for hours and hours.
I've heard that. I mean, that's not the first time I've heard of people who don't believe in God accessing that and then being like, well, it's like, I felt like there's no other explanation for that.
And that's exactly it. They asked her like, well, but you said you don't believe in God. So why would you describe it that way? And she's like, well, I mean, we don't know what is actually real, but like, this is the closest verbiage and terminology I can use to explain what I experienced.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard part, is like, I feel like there's so much shame around these things that certain people just won't touch them on principle, or out of fear of being judged for touching them, or out of fear of what might actually happen. And I mean, I don't think everyone needs to do it, but I think personally we shouldn't have the stigma around it that we do, especially now that we're seeing all these studies coming out saying upwards of 75% of people would consider this one of the most meaningful things that they've ever experienced in their entire life.
So let me ask you this. So it makes sense for me that if someone claims that they experienced God through something that most people would say is wrong, for example, psychedelics, in the Christian world, most people would probably say that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like convinced they experienced God or whatever. So if your stance is, well, then that's awesome. We should encourage more people to do that. Where is there a place where you're like if anybody said, anything about anything and they experienced God, is there ever a line?
I think,
Because if you don't use
no, like I
scripture
said,
to keep you in boundaries,
No,
then there
yeah.
are no, like, what if someone murdered someone and they were like, "Oh, I saw God."
Well, yeah, that's well,
Why-
yeah,
but
no,
then
that's not okay.
no,
But
so
then
no,
I'm like,
so
why?
what we talked
For sure.
about. Well, I was talking. You were on the computer, but I was talking about what Jesus said. Like, love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Like,
Sure.
if you're not in violation of those two things, right?
But then I would ask, there has to be more, because then you could just do whatever your whole life. And that's certainly not the case.
Well, I mean, that is
Well,
also
I
free
mean,
They're
will.
the two most
What do you-
important, but like,
no, I
you
mean
can't
everything. All the 10 Commandments and every command up to that point culminates in those two things.
just- right. But what does that entail?
So what could
Can
you?
I love
what
God
could
with
you
all
do?
my heart and love people, but then just go and, like, your actions should back those two things up. So like if you went and slept with 300 people, but you're claiming I'm not violating the two things.
Oh, you are. You're not loving your neighbor as yourself. You're
Well, if
hurting
you went
people.
and you became, well, that's what I'm saying,
You're hurting
like,
people. Yeah, and that. But I'm saying if
your
you do
actions should filter through that.
right. So if you have a psychedelic experience, you're not violating those two. The example you gave, you're directly violating
Sure.
loving your neighbor as yourself. So that's why I was saying that's kind of the filter I was using. And I'm not saying you encourage people to do it. What I'm saying is you could tell people about your experience. Wow, I had this incredible experience. And I saw God and things like that. You know, may not be for everyone. Like, I'm not, because you asked the why do it. Why? Like,
Well, there's a big. So there's also
why do you get a tattoo? Why do you go and why do people hike?
Well,
Like,
there's-
just because I go hike a mountain doesn't mean everyone's going to want to do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but I do those things because I enjoy the experience, you know, and I experience God in them. So
well, and I think the intention is a massive piece
intention's
of it.
huge. Yeah.
Because
Everything. Yeah.
If you're medicating, if you're
When I was-
self-medicating
yeah,
or like
so when I was
depressed or
younger,
something.
when I was younger and immature and just chasing experiences, when I would dabble with psychedelics, it was literally like you felt like you were rolling the dice and you're like, I just don't want to have a bad trip. Like, let's just like make sure we have a good trip. Let's make sure the environment's right. Let's make sure we set it up so that it's just a good time, right? Like, it's all about just having fun and maximizing the moment, right? And now as I'm aging, it's like, actually, I would welcome a bad trip at this point, because it's like the intention has shifted, that it's not just about, I want to make sure I have a good time, but now the intention is, I believe that there are quantum leaps that I can make and take in my psyche, in my evolution and maturation. And even if it's bad, I believe that like I'm going to have to face some demons, quote unquote, that I see, whether it's in myself or around me, whatever. And even bad trips, like I've heard so many people talk about their ayahuasca journey, and like Aubrey Marcus, he does a podcast and he has a very extensive history with plant medicine. And he talks about one of the first times he did ayahuasca, like he literally died like 50 different ways.
That sounds awful.
It was it was horrific.
Yeah.
But it was like, and then it was, so he died really gruesome deaths over and over and over.
So was he
And the final
scared
one,
of death or something?
yeah, it was basically pulling out his fear of death, his fear of his mortality. And the final one was cancer. And it was because that was the one where it was just like, you can be the seemingly most healthy, successful, happy person. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom. Like, I know like stories of like different, like super successful pastors that come down with cancer and then they're just gone in like a year. Crazy stuff. And that was where his journey led him to. It was the final kind of piece of the puzzle. And the way he explains it is like, once he finally sat with it and surrendered and said like, because like once you're in that state of mind, like it is the most real thing you've ever experienced. Like, you believe you are dying and you have it. Like, it is the realest thing you've ever felt.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment he finally just let go and surrendered, which is the crazy thing, is like so much of this stuff is biblical principle. Like, it's all you can find a lot of this stuff in the scriptures. And he said the moment that he actually surrendered, he said it was just like night and day. A switch just flipped. And then it was just like, it went from existential fear and doubt and pain and worry to just bliss. and the
What's it
most
like?
beautiful experience he's ever had.
I think of it like riding a roller coaster. I mean, you have this fear of not having control, like you're super scared, but as soon as you let go, you just have a blast, right? But what I would say, to go back to what you were saying, I think that it's important to, like, I mentioned those two things that Jesus says. And in the example you gave when you were younger and you were having these experiences, like, you weren't setting any boundaries, setting anything up to protect each other. Not that you were all Christians, but you could have easily violated those things, right? So because you didn't have those parameters and those rules, yeah, that could have turned into a bad thing. But I think really what we're talking about here are in the bounds of like a safe experience, right? Like, we're not talking about doing something crazy.
Well, what's actually interesting too is a lot of the ways that they will take you through like a therapy session is like you would ingest or take whatever, and you put on like headphones and then like a face mask, and you lay down, and you're not experiencing the external world at all.
Yeah.
It's like you go inwards and you just basically figure out like where your thoughts take you.
That's scary to me.
Totally different way to experience.
That's scary to me. It's also scary though, like thinking about the people in the sensory deprivation
tanks. Yeah.
Not that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like how they would torture people.
Oh.
How they would make someone sit in a dark room, and they would like, it was like almost like where they could literally hear their stomach digesting, like the sound, like literally would drive people crazy. Like that.
Like
would
you can
be
hear your heartbeat and the blood running
like
through your
that.
veins and shit.
That reminds me of that, just taking away your senses to where you're only focusing on a couple, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I want.
So
Get
that
me out of
buddy,
here.
that Aubrey Marcus buddy, did a I don't know if it was 3 days. It was at least 3 days
Trying.
where he did total blackout. He went to this place in Europe somewhere
For 3 days.
for 3 days, zero sunlight ever, and they would just like they would give him meals, and he would just have to feel his way around. Like, he was familiar with like the area, and he literally said like he was starting to have like psychedelic type experiences just from like,
depriving and
just from sunlight deprivation. Yeah.
You imagine the POWs who spent years in prison camps, like
But it's
in that
almost-
same type of scenario.
It's almost like, how like we have DMT receptors in our brains, and it's pretty like popularly believed that like the death experience, your brain secretes DMT, and you kind of have a psychedelic transition into the afterlife.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. Out of body experience kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like when people say they die and they're like,
The
looking down at
pineal
themselves.
gland, or pineal, however you want to, I don't know technical pronunciation.
It makes DMT.
It looks like a pine cone, but yeah. It produces
Does it?
DMT,
I didn't know that.
and then your brain has DMT receptors.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that essentially your transition into the afterlife is
You know how
guided
people,
by
people
DMT.
have like disorders and stuff. Like, just like, can you imagine if your like pineal gland just couldn't shut off and you just kept making this drug?
Dude. So not to get back on the Joe Dispenza train.
Yeah, of course. Here it comes.
But he talks
We
about,
couldn't get through a whole podcast.
hey, it's been a minute. But he talks about an experience where
Gabby
he was,
heard you say Joe Dispenza and she just kept walking.
No. He talks about an experience where he was doing like a, I don't know, super in-depth meditation, and basically he went into a full-on like DMT trip, just purely through
From meditating.
meditation.
Oh my gosh.
Because he just,
That's nuts.
so it's a practice called like Kundalini yoga, where basically you will take in an immense amount of oxygen, right? You breathe as much oxygen as you can into your lungs, right? And you want to breathe through like the belly button. Like, this is where like most people get breathing wrong.
From diaphragm.
People want, right, exactly, diaphragmatic breathing. So most people want to like breathe and be big chest, breathe like, but you actually want to breathe lower and breathe through like your belly button, because 2/3 of the oxygen that your body absorbs comes through the lower third of your lungs.
Why stop at the belly button? Just try to breathe as low as you can.
Well, if you want to go into like, this will upset a lot of people, but if you want to go into like the Buddhist type training, It's your first center is like your literal genitals.
That's what I was thinking. Breathe through your, genitals.
And then it's like, it's your different, like what they would consider chakras, right? So they start at the genitals and they work your way up to the brain. And
So
a number of them.
Bottom line, we're running out of time. We were out of time, but so you were saying he basically went on this DMT trip just for meditation.
Correct.
That's insane that you can do that.
Wait, I have a closing thought.
What's your thought?
Already forget what the scripture was that y'all talked about. The sober-minded one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like,
Have you ever thought, like, why? Like, why do you have to stay? Because I think what comes after that one is like stay of sober mind.
So that you don't make stupid decisions is what the context is.
No, because what comes after it is like because the devil roars around like a prowling lion, and it's like
Right.
So in my mind, I've been taught, like I've heard it put before, like things are more spiritual than you think. So to me, when I think of like stay sober minded, the reason isn't like, I think we've talked about this before, but like it's not like a physical. It's just saying like when you do things like that to your mind, you may be like, because there is a spiritual realm, at least biblically, it talks about that's what the kingdom of God, right? Like there's a whole spiritual thing. And so by altering your state of mind, you're giving spiritually, you're like weakening yourself against.
Yeah. So it's like you're
Something
opening the
that you could've
door.
been.
You could allow God in or the devil in or whoever.
Right. So I think a lot of people, even if that's why drunkenness and drugs are usually like, and people are super legalistic and all that stuff. But
so and I agree with you. Here's what's freaking
just
crazy.
something to chew on.
No, I like that.
I agree with you. Here's what's crazy is alcohol for the most part is seen as tolerable in a lot of Christian spheres. And I would, again, based just purely, this is my opinion based on my own personal experiences. Like when I took mushrooms, like my mind was so hyper aware of what was good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it like, you know how you feel bad when you do bad things or you make bad decisions just naturally? Like that is amplified to the nth degree when you're
Alcohol numbs that inhibition.
And that's what's funny is the alcohol is the one drug that actually probably has led to the most pain in the world. I would posit.
Well,
I can't substantiate that.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, it's weird how many people are okay with that, but aren't okay with like talking about psilocybin when alcohol really like numbs your ability to resist temptation a lot of times too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you right now,
Gabby
dude.
said it earlier. Too much of anything is bad. So even those circles of Christians that allow alcohol, if they're
For sure.
If it's just like everything else, like.
Dude, have you ever seen that documentary on Netflix about mushrooms? And it's not just like magic mushrooms. It's just about like the wonderful world of mushrooms or whatever.
When you were talking about,
I was telling you a little about it. There's this guy.
Is it called The Wonderful World of Mushrooms?
Nah, but it is a wonderful world. And they talk about like mycelium and like the way I was telling JJ earlier, like it connects it. Like, so the neural network of mushrooms and fungus basically connects the forest like a brain, right? Like a neural network. And to the point where if one tree is like sick or malnourished,
That's true in the tree
they will
community, too.
they will literally pull like nutrients or nourishment from other like life forces and trees to basically help the sick tree. Like it acts like a neural network that connects everything. And there's a story like in this documentary, there's a story of this guy who
maybe the spiritual realm is like that for us.
100%.
That's why they talk about
connect the community,
prayers being effective and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's all connected. And there's a story in the documentary of this guy who he basically ate way too many magic mushrooms. Like he just like got a bag and ate the whole thing and didn't know what he was doing. And
when you say magic, that just basically means psilocybin.
Correct.
Okay.
So he went on the trip of his life. They didn't go into the amount of grams or so I don't know how much, but it was just a
hero dose.
Straight up hero dose. Yeah. Big time. And he found himself in a tree during a thunderstorm, holding on for dear life, and for what he felt like was an eternity. But the crazy part was the backstory is before this experience, he had an incredible stuttering problem his whole life. Horrible. Like could not talk, very anxious. Just it always kind of like ailed him or whatever. And he ate all these mushrooms, got stuck in this tree during a thunderstorm. And then he had a thought while he was absolutely just tripping his balls off. He had this thought and he just said just stop stuttering. Literally.
Gosh dang it. I need that for all my
literally, bro.
My little
literally, he doesn't stutter anymore. It was a switch that just flipped. It was just like, nope. And that's what's crazy is with a lot of these, now we're actually putting science to this whole world and we're studying this stuff and we're finding that it's like, dude, the neuroplasticity that's being created through these experiences where it's just reconnecting issues in the brain.
I think people, even
pathways.
in religious community, I think they're getting more and more accepting of a lot of them do talk about CBD. A lot of them will smoke, if they have pain or something like that.
Well, dude, because that's okay. So,
but there's a lot more Christians that I know are good with that.
Well, and I would highly recommend, just for the sake of being open-minded, to read or listen to the audiobook of The Immortality Key, because he basically has spent 12 years of his life researching, and there's a very strong case that early Christianity, there's a massive component of a psychedelic experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very strong argument for it. So I'm not saying what, I don't know.
No, it's just something fun to talk about.
But what's weird
Not
is
today,
to be on this side of it where we're so anti.
Yeah.
And it's first of all, if there's an expert I'm going to listen to someone that's actually experienced it. I'm not going to listen to someone who's never tried it, that's sitting here telling me. Because I love my parents to death, but they never, neither one of my parents ever smoked or drank or did anything like that. So it's I understand why they didn't want me to do those things.
Sure.
But it's
but then it's almost like you had a hard time trusting them to tell you things based on something they have no experience with.
Well, that's tough though, because are you saying that that's the only way that you'll listen to someone?
No. But I'm just saying.
It's 80% of what we know is through instruction. But I think it's better put you either learned through instruction or through experience. So then my question then to that would be, and I agree with you. So because
I think a lot of it's the type of instruction. A lot of people, I think
how you instruct.
We've talked about the just trust me, don't do this.
Yeah, right. That's not good instruction.
No, but we have a lot of bad instruction.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think people can learn from instruction.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I think
and there's value to learning from experience.
Yeah. I think certain people are just wired differently. Nate's a perfect example. He just bought it, and it's clearly worked out very well for him. I was someone who I had to learn through experience.
Sure.
And so does that come with a little more pain and kind of baggage? Sure.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
But
Look how cool you are now.
Gabby's I'm also one to learn from experience.
My mom never told me not to do anything. She just said if I want to do it with her first. Other than sex.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end.
Your mom's the goat. Let's go.
That's hilarious.
I love that.
All right. Anyway, this was fun. This was fun talk. And we will catch you guys next time.
Pizza Bruno tonight. Let's get it.
Ba-boom. Drop it.